Welcome. I'm Ileana. Today at the table we will be exploring whether it is best to use rigid spreads in reading tarot or just to place cards without a designated placement meaning. This second way of interpreting the cards is known as freeform or intuitive reading. First of all, there is no right or wrong way to read the tarot, only useful and useless ways. The useless ways are ways that do not work with you. Tarot is completely individual to each reader. Trying a spread and finding it clunky or it creating a confusing reading does not mean you are not a spread reader. The power of spreads comes in the practice and internalization of the spreads. Every interaction with the cards, from shuffling to placement, is guided by something, although it feels very random to us. When you have practiced spreads enough to internalize the meaning of each placement, then this guidance kicks into action and the right card can slot itself into the right placement during the reading. Freeform reading also has this guidance, but as the placements have no assigned meaning, it is looser, less exact. There's nothing wrong with that. I think of spread reading versus free form as being like writing a sonnet versus a free verse poem. Both styles of writing can produce a vivid and beautiful poem, and no poet would be expected to limit themselves to one or the other, although of course anyone can have a preference. When writing a sonnet, there are very strict rules to follow. Working within this box actually makes the poet dig deeper into their creativity. The restraints require the poet to turn and move words and phrases in ways that they would not have to in free verse, and therefore requires more energy and concentration and deep thinking. Free verse isn't a free-for-all, of course. A poet writing free verse still has to be exact and thoughtful to create a successful result, but without the constraints of required syllable counts, rhyming scheme, or line counts, they are able to create a poem that is more expressive of themselves, with a more shallow dive into their creativity. There is nothing wrong with either way of creating a poem. There is nothing wrong with either way of reading tarot. Personally, I enjoy spreads, but I absolutely have done many free-form readings as well. I can only speak of my experience. In fact, when I read runes, it's basically a free-form reading. That is how I best interact with the runes, as I have learned over time and practice. Free-form readings do have limits generally, and do take a fair amount of skill to accomplish well, like a free verse poem. The person doing a free-form reading doesn't just keep dealing out cards until they're all gone, usually. They usually have a set amount of cards they would deal. They just let the cards completely dictate what reading is going to be about, although it could be said that by using only 8 or 10 or whatever amount of cards that it is sort of like a spread. For burgeoning tarot readers, it is usually recommended that you use spreads. It is easier to flex your intuitive muscles and to learn how cards can interact when they have specific things they are each addressing. But of course, practice free form, see what it feels like. How you can link cards can be more difficult for some doing this, but for others they find it easier. Remember, there is no worse or better way here. There is only useful and useless. That sounds like a moral judgment. Useful sounds good, useless sounds bad. But really it is about utility, and that is objective and morally neutral. Practice both ways, experiment, maybe create a hybrid system that works for you. I can imagine a reading that has concrete placements like a spread, but then has a freeform component worked in to elaborate on what the spread has told you. Okay, thanks for spending time with me today. I always love spending time with you. I hope this has been helpful and got your wheels turning on what you would like your tarot practice to be. There's no harm in trying different things. Tarot is about being a conduit to guidance and understanding. Your spirit and your brain are uniquely yours, and it is your responsibility to find out how they interact with the cards to give the best readings that you can. Until next time, goodbye.